What's going on, everybody? Good afternoon. Hope you guys are doing well. It's a little bit of a chill day on the channel, I think. Maybe it won't be. Maybe something will happen later today. But for now, I'm pretty content to have today be kind of the calm before the storm, because starting tomorrow, we're going to have a ton to say in the free agency primer. It's going to be dozens and dozens of videos in just a few weeks. So today's kind of a chill day. But I wanted to go ahead and address one of the hot topics in the Seahawks fandom right now, concerning big blockbuster or at least semi-blockbuster trades. Couple of things happened yesterday, and it got some Seahawks fans buzzing. One much more than the other, admittedly. One much more than the other, but I definitely saw some level of interest in both of these outcomes. This video is powered by BetUS. More on them a little bit later. But I'm going to go ahead and start with this one. I think this one definitely has more Seahawks interest because the trade is more realistic. The trade is for a much more clearly elite player. And theoretically, he does solve a lot of problems with this roster. We're talking about Myles Garrett. And yesterday was a big day because Myles Garrett, for the first time that I'm aware of, actually requested a trade. He didn't say he was open to a trade. He said that he wanted a trade. Now, we spoke a little bit about Myles Garrett in a previous video. I think it was like two and a half months ago, where the initial possibility of a guy like a Myles Garrett being available in a trade was floated. And it was worth spending a couple minutes on. I think it kind of came in that same window where there was like a Micah Parsons and Max Crosby. Myles Garrett was kind of lumped into that. So we talked about it a little bit then. And it's worth talking a little bit about now because Garrett's now put himself on the table. Of course, the Browns are pretty adamant in saying that they're not going to trade Myles Garrett. And it's hard to blame them when you take a look at his contract, which we'll do in just a moment here. But I get the appeal. I do. Myles Garrett is a great player. He won Defensive Player of the Year a year ago, anchored probably the best defense in football. Maybe not statistically, but in terms of effectiveness, I think they were. And he's probably a future Hall of Famer at this point. He is one of the best players out there. Didn't have his best year in 2024. But still remains a very good player. And, I mean, it's the Browns. Who knows what's going on there? It's a little bit harder to excel when you're playing on a team like the Browns that is so bad they never get a lead, so you can't really pin your ears back and rush the passer as much as you would like. Life's hard for a Brown. So, Myles Garrett, I get it. But I would say, though, I do have to ask, does he fit McDonald's defense? Is Myles Garrett somebody who you can have standing up constantly? And is he somebody who can play in the way McDonald wants to play defense? Maybe, right? Maybe. It does seem like he wants a power edge, and Myles Garrett could be that power edge. But can Myles Garrett reliably play standing up? I don't know these things. You would assume that the team would know it before they would even think about trying to do something like this. But it is worth thinking about. Because to my knowledge, Myles Garrett has spent much of his career with his hand in the dirt. If he can't do that here, does that reduce his effectiveness? Logic says he could probably pull it off. Logic says he could probably manage it. But at the same time, not everybody is going to be able to make that transition easily. Now, you take a look at the Myles Garrett contract on Spotrac here. There are 2 years left on the deal, 2025, 2026. And basically all the money is in bonus. There's very little base. The base has been taken down almost to the minimum. And then they have 4 pretty big void years. They have 4 pretty sizable void year cap hits. So there is massive incentive for the Browns to keep Myles Garrett because they're going to pay him pretty much all of his money regardless. If you take a look at Spotrac here and you go over to what a trade would entail, it would mean either you eat $36.2 million dead, which is more than his cap hit by a lot, or you split the cap hit across 2 seasons, and then you're saving a little bit of money, still not great. So understand that you're asking the Browns to do a lot in parting with Myles Garrett. Before I go any further, though, I do want to tell you about my friends over at BetUS. Super Bowl's coming up. You can head on over there right now. Bet on the game. Bet on money line. Bet on over-under. Bet on game props. You can bet on quarters. You can bet on halves. Use promo code YouTube150. Whatever you bet on when you sign up, you can get 150% deposit bonus. First deposit up to $2,000. And 125% deposit bonus on your next 2 deposits up to $2,000. You can bet on other stuff too. They got basketball, they got hockey, baseball's going to be starting soon. All kinds of fun sports stuff. Get on over to BetUS and get to some sports gambling. Check them out. Right. So anyway, back to Myles Garrett. Trading him is no small thing. And I know this might excite some people because they're like, oh, we wouldn't have to pay Myles Garrett any money for the next 2 years. But if he got traded, he would definitely want a new contract. There's no way he would come to Seattle and play on the old contract. He would want a new one, and he would have, by and large, earned one. I mean, the guy won Defensive Player of the Year 2 years ago. So you'd have to trade for him and then probably give him an extension in the vein of a, maybe not quite Nick Bosa, but very close. You're not far off of Nick Bosa territory. I'd say a little bit less because he is older and he's already gotten paid. And Bosa at the time was considered a better player than Garrett is right now, but you're not missing it by much. So you've got that part of it. And then, by the way, you have the trade itself. What are you trading for Myles Garrett? Your first round pick, for starters, let's start there. Your first round pick, one of your young edge players, so either Mafe or Hall, whichever one the Browns want more probably. Probably another second round pick. And I would imagine you have to throw in a little something else. Maybe a fourth rounder, maybe K9. It's not going to be cheap because the Browns are going to still be paying him a ton of money. Look at these cap hits. These cap hits do not go away just because they trade him. And look at all the void years they've already committed to themselves. Now, these don't go anywhere no matter what. But I'm sure the Browns' thinking is along the lines of, well, we're going to be paying him all that money anyway. Let's at least get production out of him the next 2 years. So this does not come together prettily at all. It would require the Browns to basically just give up on the current team and accept they're not going to be good for a couple years. And the only way you can get them to do that is to overwhelm them. You might have to give up 2 first-round picks and Derek Hall, something like that. And for a player who's about to hit 30, for a player who has already had some injury issues, like he's having surgery on I think both of his feet this offseason, I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if I'm feeling this one personally. So I like Micah Parsons. I like Max Crosby. I would be much more interested in trading for those two than I would be trading for Myles Garrett, but it was worth discussing. Now, the other one that came down yesterday, this one's not as big of a surprise, but it's also more definitive. Cooper Kupp is going to be traded. And we know this because the Rams have said they are going to do it. It's not Kupp who wants out. The Rams want Kupp out because they don't want to pay him. They think he's getting older, he gets hurt a lot, yada, yada, yada. So obviously, this has a non-trivial effect on a division rival, so as a Seahawks fan, we can reflect on this from that perspective. Cooper Kupp is still a good player, not what he used to be. He's injured far too often to be the hyper-elite player he once was, and losing him will have some negative effect. They seem to have done an okay job replacing him because they miss him a lot as is, realistically, right? He's already missed a lot of time and they survive without him, so they can probably continue to survive with him off the team. So it won't be a massive effect, but I imagine there will be some pain involved. Puka Nacua now elevates to a full-on number 1 role. And theoretically, Cooper Kupp brings some things to the table that Seahawks fans probably want right now because we know we're losing Lockett. So I get the initial interest. Cooper Kupp is a guy who can play inside and outside. So you're not losing anything by having him become mostly an outside player. He can win outside, no problem. He's done it throughout his career. He's had a great career. His 2021 might be the best single season by a wide receiver in NFL history. And I I get it, but it falls apart pretty quickly. Cooper Kupp is on a division rival. They're not going to be willing to help out a division rival unless they overpay massively. So for other teams, Cooper Kupp's cost is probably like a 5th-round pick because he's old and injury prone. The Seahawks are going to have to give up more than that. The Rams are not going to help the Seahawks unless they get so much value they cannot turn it down. And that is something I'm absolutely not willing to do for a player of this age and injury history. It sounds like a sucker trap. I'm not falling in that trap. And if you take a look at Cooper Kupp's contract, you can see that a significant portion of his money is in bonus, but a significant portion of it is also in base as well. And if he gets traded, he will probably want a new contract as well. And let's think about this for a second here. We're probably about to give DK Metcalf a new contract. JSN's extension is due after this season. And we just hired an offensive coordinator that likes to use tight ends and uses 3 receiver sets pretty rarely. He goes 3 receiver at a very low rate. So are you really wanting to pay all this money to Cooper Kupp? You have to overpay for him in the trade. Then you have to pay big for him in the new contract. Obviously, the Rams absorb some of the dead, they absorb all of the dead money, but you're then going to have to extend him and you're still paying him. And then you've got an aging, injury-prone player making big bucks. So I can't really get behind this one. I think this is something that Seahawks fans have a knee-jerk reaction to of, oh, I want in on that. And then if they think about it for 5 minutes, they'll realize there's really nothing to get in on. It's it's a situation where even if he doesn't want an extension, by the way, the money is probably too much, right? Because remember, he's got a roster bonus. So the roster bonus should transfer over to the Seahawks in the event of a trade. So base plus roster bonus would be $20 million if I'm right about that. Do you want to pay $20 million to Cooper Kupp, given his age and his injury history, knowing that he might not even see the field that much because of Kubiak's offense? The Seahawks do need to add another receiver this offseason, but it needs to be cost effective. It needs to be a judicious use of assets. We don't need another receiver who can go get 1,000 yards. If we extend DK, which I do believe that we will right now, regardless of whether or not I think that's a good idea, that's a guy who's going to get you 1,000 yards, and you've got JSN, who's a guy who's going to get you 1,000. So another receiver that gets you to 1,000 yards doesn't really add up in an offense that is going to be heavily dependent on 12 personnel. So can't make it add up. Cannot make it add up unless he's willing to play super cheap. He did play college football in Washington. I know that's some of the interest here. People want to bring this guy home, but yeah, there's just nothing really going on here for me. Let me know what you guys think, though. I'll see you guys later. Go Hawks. Just wanted to talk about these two for few minutes because I know Seahawks fans have them on the mind, but I can't really make it. I can't really make the math, if you know what I mean. Thank you to BetUS for powering this video. See you guys later. Go Hawks.